everyone. I am the goddess of radical self-love, and this is MECA, Make Everyone Count Always. We are a support network for radical self-love, self-care, and master manifesting. Thank you all so much for your comment, likes, and shares, and subscriptions. Our community here at MECA values and supports our community's most vulnerable and those who care for them, our caregivers and care receivers. When our community's most vulnerable and those who care for them feel valued and supported, the rest of us are assured we are valued and supported as well. So today is our last day working with my boyfriend Maslow, so I decided for free on here, but you can get it at ibodme.com. Yes, if you use goddess.ibodme@gmail.com, then I can get you on the membership for free right now. I'll put a link in there for you all to use as well to my email. So we could use your help too and assistance, and if you want to become an ambassador, that would be super awesome. So, Laurel, no digging. Naughty girl, no digging. You lay down. Lay down. Wow. So naughty. Naughty girl. Naughty girl. Anyway. It's my last day. So I'm doing whatever I want. Since I have to be more professional when I come back at the paid version. Yeah, so my boss doesn't yell at me because I have a boss now. It's kind of fun. Kind of like having a boss. It takes some pressure off. I know I have to, I do a lot. I do a lot, but I still know somebody else is going to do it when I'm not going to do it. So that means I don't have to do it all myself. So I like it. Yeah. So, I can't believe this is our last day on here for free. I am really sad in a weird way. It's like, I'm not doing anything different. I'm still doing my videos, so I don't understand why I'm like so sad. It's like, I have to give something up to get something or something like that. It's still mine, so I don't understand, like, I think it's because of you guys, who's ever still watching. I feel like that, maybe, I don't know, as long as you guys email me, I can get you on there for free so you can still be with me. So I don't know, everything goes so weird in my life, so who knows why this is ending right now. I think it's because of iBody. Maybe it's a different reason, who knows. If it is a different reason, I'll just be back and tell you about it. So possibly, so let's go ahead with my boyfriend, and we're on section 3, and we're just gonna go through and read it all to the end of the chapter if I want to. Yeah, he's got some good shit we need to know. Alrighty, I'm back. With my boyfriend, our boyfriend. He's really our boyfriend now. Yeah. Kidding. So, in all the common peak experiences which I have studied, peak experiences, life-changing experiences, like magic moments in your life that you'll never forget, right? There's a very characteristic disorientation in the time and space. It would be accurate to say that in these moments, the person is outside of time and space subjectively. So this is just kind of describing it, right? In the creative furor, the poet or artist becomes oblivious of his surroundings and of the passage of time. Yes. And this also happens when I'm working on MECA or iBody. That's why I'm work obsessed, because I go into the work hole and I can't see out of it. Okay. It is impossible for him when he wakes up to judge how much time has passed. Frequently, he has had to shake his head as if emerging from a daze to rediscover where he is. I think my kids do this when they play video games as well. But more than this is the frequent report, especially by lovers, of the complete loss of extension in time. I don't know. I'm trying to just think if that has actually ever happened, where I've lost track of time because I was making love. I don't know. That's not good. You're not gonna go buy that painting. But I have, and I do when I paint. That's for sure. Daughter will be like, Mom, do you know what time it is? That's why it took me so freaking long to paint that painting, because it's like, I don't know. It's weird. It's not like that's the greatest thing ever. It's like, I just go into this. It can be like the dumbest thing I'm working on the painting, not on anything, obviously. But it happens when you drive sometimes, right? Well, for me it does, I know. That's probably not good either. Anyway, if I'm listening to good music. Not only, but more than this is the frequent report, especially by lovers, of the complete loss of extension in time. Not only does time pass in their ecstasies with a frightening rapidity, so that a day may pass as if it were a minute, but also a minute so intensely lived may feel like a day or a year. It's as if they had, in a way, some place in another world in which time simultaneously stood still and moved with great rapidity. I am so putting this in. I find me so sexy. For our ordinary categories, this is of course a paradox and a contradiction, and yet this is what is reported, and it is therefore a fact that we must take into account of. I see no reason why this kind of experiencing of time should not be amenable to experimental research. The judgment of the passing of time in peak experience must be very inaccurate. So also must consciousness of surroundings be much less accurate than in normal living. I agree. Let's get it on. Let's figure out the time lapses and peak experiences. Somebody can monitor my brain. That'd be awesome. So, 8. The implications of my findings for a psychology of values are very puzzling and yet so unformed. I found a really cool thing that is a psychology of values. I'm trying to make them affiliates, so I don't know if I should tell them. So, the implications of my finding for a psychology of values are very puzzling and yet so uniform that it is necessary not only to report them, but also try somehow to understand them. To start at the end first, the peak experience is only good and desirable, and is never experienced as evil or undesirable. I don't know about that. I think he's wrong there. Okay, here's the deal. Time can stop when you're in pain. Everybody knows that. So I don't know what he's talking about. And pain, it can be a peak experience. Pain can teach you, I don't know. in some ways, to me, pain can teach you more than joy. But maybe I just haven't experienced the level of joy in the outside world. Like, I mean, like, I've experienced, like, I've had peak experiences where time has stopped just from being out in nature, right? I had the ocean talk to me and all these things, but it's like, I'm talking about something. Maybe that is it. You know, maybe it's just not, there's nothing else that's going to, you know, meet those, obviously. I mean, I've had some really amazing experiences, that's for sure. But, well, I wouldn't know how amazing my experiences are. It would have to be, I don't know if you can compare experiences like that. Right? Because, okay, let's just say, for instance, everybody's gone to Vegas. But when I went to Vegas, you know, it's like, yeah, I didn't go until I was 38. But when I went, it was good. It was real good. You know, like weird shit like that. But then on the other side, the devastating shit, it's like, are they comparable in the good experiences? Like, would I trade, okay, for the knowledge that you gained, right? That's what you have to look at. Would there be an experience that was so pleasurable it would be comparable to the pain? The kids being born. I would say the experience, I would say the pendulum swinging on the side, like we talked about yesterday, would be about the wisdom gained, not about the pendulum swinging to match the painful experience with such a pleasurable experience that it eclipsed the painful experience, right? To me. But that's only on my judgment, right? Like, somebody else might disagree. I'd go through that to have that. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, right? The only thing that I would go through all that shit for again is the wisdom. That's it. There's no amount of money. There's no amount of shit that is going to make up. I shouldn't say that yet. I'm not saying that yet. I'm open to receive. Sorry. I'm sorry. It's gotta be said. Like, I just got done painting that magician, and they said when I was done painting the magician that I was gonna reap the rewards of all the seeds I had planted. So it's harvest time. Ready? But I'm back. So it's just because I was like, yeah, probably didn't even want to look at that spot again. To start at the end first, the peak experience is only good and desirable and never is experienced as evil or undesirable. And I disagree with my boyfriend. The experience is, I mean, and I think because, you know, he would have, I don't know how many people that he had that didn't have like some perfect type of upbringing to get them to the state that he believes is the ultimate, right? Self-actualization, or self-transcendence. But I think most of the people that he met had like pretty picture perfect lives up into a certain point. So I don't get to read his notes. I want somebody to give them all to me. Please send me all his books and his notes. Whoever can get a hold of them for me, please. Thank you. So, the experience is intrinsically valid. The experience is perfect. By whose definition of perfect, right? I mean, so perfect for what? Perfect for the wisdom gained sometimes. So the experience is intrinsically valid. The experience is perfect, complete, and needs nothing else, right? So, like, if an experience was so bad and you were to ask why, that would be adding something else until you get to the point where you finally figure it all out. You don't even need to ask those questions anymore. It needs nothing else. It was your peak experience to give you the wisdom, so it needs nothing else. It is sufficient to itself. It is felt as being intrinsically necessary and inevitable. It is just as good as it should be. As it should be. Right? To get you where you are right now. As it should be. There's no matter what. It's to get you where you are right now. As it should be. As it should have been. No questions. Right? It is reacted to with awe, wonder, amazement, humility, and even reverence, exhalation, and piety. The word sacred is occasionally used to describe the person's reaction to it. It is delightful and amusing in a being sense. Maybe after, for what I was talking about, after, when you got the why, then it's like, when you don't have to ask why anymore. That moment of never having to ask why again, that's the sacred moment. And then it makes everything else sacred. So what you thought could never be sacred because it was. Well, I guess we memorialize even the most hideous human nature events, whatever, right? Or those who had to go through them at least, which again does memorialize the event itself as sacred. Just as it should be. The philosophical implications here are tremendous. If, for the sake of argument, we accept the thesis that in peak experience the nature of reality itself may be seen more clearly and its essence penetrated more profoundly, then this is almost the same as saying what so many philosophers and theologians have affirmed, that the whole of being is only neutral or good, and that evil or pain or threat is only a partial phenomenon, a product of not seeing the world whole and unified, and of seeing it from a self-centered point of view. Illness, mental illness, right? Or yes, mental illness. It's what we call evil. is sickness. It's an illness. It's not being fulfilled in some area or being overly fulfilled. It's not being balanced. Another way of saying this is to compare it with one aspect of the concept of God, which is contained in many religions, the gods who can contemplate and encompass the whole of a being, and who therefore understand it, must see it as good, just, inevitable, and must see evil as a product of limited or selfish vision and understanding. If we could be godlike in this sense, then we too, out of universal understanding, would never blame or condemn or be disappointed or shocked. Our only possible emotions would be pity, charity, kindliness, and perhaps sadness, or be amusement with shortcomings of the other. Girl. But this is precisely the way in which self-actualizing people do at times react to the world, and in which all of us react to our peak moments. This is precisely the way in which all psychotherapists try to react to their patients. We must grant, of course, that this godlike, universally tolerant, be amused, and be accepting. Remember, being, right? So loving. I say being is loving, so. Is extremely difficult to attain, probably even impossible in a pure form, and yet we know that this is a relative matter. We can approximate it more closely or less closely, and it would be foolish to deny the phenomenon simply because it comes rarely, temporarily, and impurely. Though we can never be gods in this sense, we can be more godlike or less godlike, more often or less often. I just love my boyfriend. Little girl. Sorry. In any case, the contrast with our ordinary conditions and reactions is very sharp. Ordinarily, we proceed under the aegis of means, values, of usefulness, desirability, badness, or goodness, or suitability for purpose. We evaluate, control, judge, condemn, or approve. We laugh at rather than laugh with. We react to the experience in personal terms and perceive the world in reference to ourselves and our ends, thereby making the world no more than means to our ends. This is the opposite of being detached from the world, which means in turn that we are not really perceiving it, but perceiving ourselves in it, or it in ourselves. We perceive then in a deficiency-motivated way, and therefore can perceive only D values, deficiency values. This is different from perceiving the whole world, or that portion of it which, in the peak experience, we take as surrogate for the world. Then, and only then, can we perceive its values rather than our own. These I call the values of being, or for short, the B values. These are the same as Robert Hartman's intrinsic values. These B values, being values, so far as I can make out at this point, are. And those of you who have been with me long enough have already gone through these. They're amazing, so you should take notes if you haven't. So, wholeness, unity, integration, tendency to oneness, interconnectedness, simplicity, organization, structure, dichotomy, transcendence, order. That was 1. 2. Perfection, necessity, just rightness, just so-ness, inevitability, suitability, justice, completeness, oughtness. 3. Completion, ending, finality, justice, it's finished, fulfillment, finis and telos, destiny, fate. 4. Justice, fairness, orderliness, lawfulness, oughtness. 5. Aliveness, process, non-deadness, spontaneity, self-regulation, full functioning. 6. Richness, differentiation, complexity, intricacy, 7. Simplicity, honesty, nakedness, essentiality, abstract, essential, skeletal structure. 8. Beauty, rightness, form, aliveness, simplicity, richness, wholeness, perfection, completion, uniqueness, honesty. 9. Goodness, rightness, desirability, oughtness, justice, benevolence, honesty. 10. Uniqueness, idiosyncrasy, individuality, non-comparability, novelty. 11. Effortlessness, ease, lack of strain, striving, or difficulty. Grace, perfect, beautiful, functioning. 12. Playfulness, fun, joy, amusement. Gaiety, humor, exuberance, effortlessness. I love that word. Effortlessness. 13. Truth, honesty, reality, nakedness, simplicity, richness, oughtness, beauty, pure, clean, and unadulterated, completeness, essentiality. I can't believe I can't say anything today. It's like, I don't know. 14. Self-sufficiency, autonomy, independence, not needing other than itself in order to be itself. It literally says that. Not needing other than itself in order to be itself. Yeah, just like that. Self-determining, environment, transcendence, separateness, living by its own laws. These are obviously not mutually exclusive. They are not separate or distinct, but overlap or fuse with each other. Ultimately, they are all facets of being rather than parts of it. Various of these aspects will come to the foreground of cognition depending on the operation which has revealed it. Perceiving the beautiful person or the beautiful painting, experiencing perfect sex and or perfect love, insight, creativeness, parturition. Not only is this then a demonstration of fusion and unity of the old trinity of the true, the good, the beautiful, etc., but it is also much more than that. I have elsewhere reported my finding that truth, goodness, and beauty are in the average person in our culture only fairly well correlated with each other, and in the neurotic person even less so. It is only in the evolved and mature human being, in the self-actualizing, fully functioning person, that they are so highly correlated that for all practical purposes, they may be said to fuse into unity. I would now add that this is also true for other people in their peak experiences. This finding, if it turns out to be correct, is in direct and flat contradiction to one of the basic axioms that guides all scientific thought, namely that the more objective and impersonal perception becomes, the more detached it becomes from value. Fact and value have almost always, by intellectuals, been considered to be autonomous and mutually exclusive. But perhaps the opposite is true, for when we examine the most ego-detached, objective, motivationless, passive cognition, we find that it claims to perceive values directly, that values cannot be shorn away from reality, and that the most profound perceptions of facts cause the is and the oughts to fuse. In these moments, reality is tinged with wonder, admiration, awe, and approval, i.e., with value. Stupid head. It's causing me pain. Yeah, I have had it on all day to celebrate. Oh, wait. Maybe I put it on. Did I put it on this morning? I think I put it on later. I don't know. I can't remember now. Whatever. It wouldn't matter anyway. To me. So, 9. Normal experience is embedded in history and in culture, as well as in the shifting and relative needs of man. It is organized in time and in space. It is part of larger wholes, and therefore is relative to these larger wholes and frames of reference, since it is felt to depend upon man for whatever reality it has than if men were to disappear. It also would disappear. Its organizing frames of reference shift from interests of the person to the demands of the situation, from the immediate in time to the past and future, and from the here to the there, and here to the there. And these senses, experience, and behavior are relative. Peak experiences are, from this point of view, more absolute and less relative. Not only are they timeless and spaceless in the senses which I have indicated above, not only are they detached from the ground and perceive more in themselves, not only are they relatively unmotivated and detached from the interests of man, but they are also perceived and reacted to as if they were, in themselves, out there. As if they were perceptions of a reality independent of man and persisting beyond his life. It is certainly difficult and also dangerous scientifically to speak of relative and absolute, and I am aware that this is a semantic swamp. And yet I am compelled by the many introspective reports of my subjects to report this differentiation as a finding with which we psychologists will ultimately have to make our peace. These are the words that the subjects themselves use in trying to describe experiences which are essentially inevitable. Inevitable. Ineffable. Okay. I'm going to have to look that up. I don't know why I didn't do it before. They speak of absolute. They speak of relative. So that's it. That's what it means. Again and again, we ourselves are tempted to this kind of vocabulary, for instance, in the realm of art. A Chinese vase may be perfect in itself, may be simultaneously 2,000 years old, and yet fresh in this moment, universal rather than Chinese. In these senses, at least, it is absolute, even though also simultaneous the relative to time, to the culture of its origin, and to the aesthetic standard of the beholder, it is not meaningful. Also, that the mystic experience has been described in almost identical words by people in every religion, every era, and every culture. No wonder Huxley has called it the perennial philosophy. The great creators, let us say, as anthologized by Euster, whatever, Bolin, Goslin, I don't know, have described their creative moments in almost identical terms, even though they were variously poets, chemists, sculptors, philosophers, and mathematicians. The concept of absolute has made difficulty partly because it has almost always been permeated with a static taint. Nice, a static taint. It is now clear from the experience of my subjects that it is not necessary or inevitable. Perception of any aesthetic object or a beloved face or a beautiful theory is a fluctuating, shifting process, but this fluctuation of attention is strictly within the perception. Its richness can be infinite, and the continued gaze can go from one aspect of the perfection to another. Now concentrating on one aspect of it, now on the other. A fine painting has many organizations, not just one. Little girl, honey, honey, honey. We are very busy here, and we can't do both. Okay? So, we needn't struggle over whether it is either relative or absolute. It can be both. 10. Ordinarily, cognition is a very active process. It is characteristically a kind of shaping and selecting by the beholder. He chooses what to perceive and what not to perceive. He relates it to his needs and fears and interests. He gives it organization, arranging and rearranging it. In a word, he works at it. Cognition is an energy-consuming process. It involves alertness, vigilance, and tension, and is therefore fatiguing. Cognition is much more passive and receptive than active, although, of course, it can never be completely so. The best descriptions that I have found of this passive kind of cognitizing comes from Eastern philosophers, especially from Lao Tzu and the Taoist philosophers. Krishnamurti has an excellent phrase to describe my data. He calls it choiceless awareness. We could also name it desireless awareness. The Taoistic conception of let be also says what I am trying to say, namely that perception may be undemanding rather than demanding, contemplative rather than forceful. It can be humble before the experience, non-inferring rather than taking. It can let the percept be itself. I am reminded here also of Freud's description of free-floating attention. This too is passive rather than active, selfless rather than egocentric, dreamy rather than vigilant, patient rather than impatient. It is gazing rather than looking, surrendering and submitting to the experience. I have also found useful a recent Memorandum by John Sleen on the difference between passive listening and active forceful listening. The good therapist must be able to listen in the receiving rather than the taking sense in order to be able to hear what is actually said rather than what he expects to hear or demands to hear. Or parent. He must not impose himself, but rather let the words flow in upon him. Only so can their own shape and pattern be assimilated. Otherwise, one hears only one's own theories and expectations. As a matter of fact, we may say that it is this criterion of being able to be receiving and passive that marks off the good therapist from the poor one of whatever school. The good therapist is able to perceive each person in his own right freshly and without the urge to taxonomize or rubricize, to classify and pigeonhole. The poor therapist, through 100 years of clinical experience, may find only repeated corroborations of, I don't know, I've never said that before, I don't know. Corroboration of the theories which he has learned at the beginning of his career. It is in this sense that it has been pointed out that a therapist can repeat the same mistake for 40 years and then call it rich clinical experience. An entirely different, though equally unfashionable way of communicating the feeling of this characteristic of the cognition is to call it, with C.H. Lawrence and the Roman mystics, non-voluntary rather than volitional. Ordinarily, I bet my daughter's here. Ordinarily, cognition is highly volational. Ordinarily, cognition is highly volitional and therefore demanding, prearranged, and preconceived. In the cognition of peak experience, the will does not interfere. It is held in ambient. It receives and doesn't demand. We cannot command the peak experience. It happens to us. To find all positive. I don't know where I left off because my daughter and her friend just got home from camp now, so I believe I'm on 11. I know I already started it. I'm sorry. The emotional reaction in the peak experience has a special flavor of wonder, of awe, of reverence, of humility, and surrender before the experience as before something great. This sometimes has a touch of fear, although pleasant fear of being overwhelmed. My subjects report this in such phrases as, this is too much for me. It is more than I can bear. It is too wonderful. The experience may have a certain poignancy and piercing quality which may bring either tears or laughter or both, and which may be paradoxically akin to pain, although this is a desirable pain which is often described as sweet. This may go as far as to involve thoughts of death in a particular way. Not only may subjects, but many writers on the various peak experience have made the parallel with the experience of dying, that is, an eager dying. A typical phrase might be, this is too wonderful. I don't know how I can bear it. I could die now, and it would be all right. Perhaps this is in part a hanging on to the experience and a reluctance to go down from the peak into the valley of ordinary existence. Perhaps it is in part also an aspect of the profound sense of humility, smallness, unworthiness before the enormity of the experience. Or an understanding, a complete understanding. 12, another paradox with which we must deal, difficult though it is found in the conflicting reports of perception of the world. In some reports, particularly of the mystic experience or the religious experience or philosophical experience, the whole of the world is seen as a unity, as a single rich live entity. In other of the peak experiences, most particularly the love experience and the aesthetic experience, one small part of the world is perceived as if it were the moment all of the world, as if it were for the moment all of the world. In both cases, the perception is of unity. Probably the fact that the cognition of a painting or a person of a theory retains all the attributes of the whole of being, i.e. the B values, derives from this fact of perceiving it as if it were all that existed at the moment. Yeah. Here, I think what I'm going to do is stop for today and come back and read the rest tomorrow, because it is really long, and even the rest of the chapter, yeah, I guess I could probably do it small enough, yeah. So, I guess I'm not done for today yet. No, I kept saying, maybe that's why I made it the whole chapter, so I would have to keep reading and have one more day of loving all of you, all by myself. So, have a wonderful night, as always. Goodness. Ciao, ciao for now. Come on.